Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Walk in Faith. I'm excited to be sitting down with Simone Leraki, the director of the new film, The Apocalypse of St. John. And I'm a little bit jealous because he's in Argentina where it's warm and we are very cold in New Jersey. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Craig, for having me your show.
I appreciate you just taking the time. The apocalypse, right? The end of days. It's not usually something that as a Catholic that we speak about. With my evangelical friends, my Protestant friends, we're always talking about it. So as I'm watching this film, I'm thinking, I'm like, this is a very important topic, but I was curious, like, why did you decide to make a documentary on the book of Revelation? And do you believe that we're living in the end of days?
Well, at first I didn't believe it. I always believed in the dogma of the second Christ, coming of Christ, while growing up. That was what I was taught. But one always thought in the back of his mind that was something for maybe 1,000 years from here, maybe millions years from here, something very far away that you don't pay really much attention to it. But after when I started studying with Catholic scholars and writers about what revelation really meant, I discovered that not only that time is not that far away, but it's pretty close. We are living, in fact, the end of times, and that shocked me. Every description these scholars made when I was studying the book, um, and I'm talking about writers from 1 to more centuries ago, they seem to describe our time, and that shocked me a lot. And that's why I started thinking I need to communicate this to to most people I can. How can I do that? And as I'm a student of film when I was young, I thought that the best idea was to make a series of videos in YouTube. That was the how this project started. On YouTube, these videos had a lot of impact. For about a year, they were doing really good until they were blocked in YouTube. They were censored. My channel was censored, um, and that made me think another alternatives. And one thing led to another until we end up doing a movie about this and releasing it in already over 20 countries across America and Europe. And now we have the release there in the US.
Wow.
But the main thing is that I saw it was so current, the topic of Revelation. And as you said, when I was studying, I find out that today the Catholic Church doesn't really speak much about it. It's like a book they want to leave there on the shelf. But Protestants and evangelicals do talk about it a lot. And they have it very present and they are very aware that we are in the end times and that Christ is coming soon. And I wanted to give Catholics the Catholic interpretation that I found, that it has a lot of common points, common ground with the Protestant interpretation. That's why I came to the same conclusion they did, that Christ is coming really soon and that we are living, in fact, in the end times.
I mean, you said so many interesting things. And just that small point of just being censored on YouTube. I mean, to see that, and we know that happens all the time. It's happened to me. I think I have two flags for proclaiming the gospel. And but if I post other videos, I could, increase my revenue, my income dramatically. But like I said, I attend a lot of Christian Protestant events, and it's always the topic of conversation. I've seen several documentaries about the end of days. I know a lot of people that have screenplays about the end of days, the seven seals. But to hear it from a Catholic perspective, to hear it from you, especially from a Catholic lens, like you even talk about from the Vatican perspective, you go all the way back, you talk about from St. John. I mean, it's a lot to watch though, because it's not something that I learned really in theology. It's not something I learned in CCD school. It's something that maybe I would see on the big screen, but depicted more in a secular way, not in from a Catholic perspective. But when you just look at time in general, like you look at what's happening around the world, like I cover Christian persecution a lot, especially in Nigeria, places like Nigeria, war, the pandemic. Like I question this. I mean, what seal do you think we're on? And if you could even go back and explain what the seven seals are, because most people have no idea what it is. They think it's a film that with Demi Moore started about 30 years ago. What are the seven seals?
Well, This is the Apocalypse of Saint John, the movie we are releasing now, February 15th. Is part one of a two-part saga. This part one covers the first half of the book of Revelation, that is the seven churches, the seven seals, and the seven trumpets. Each one of this first half of the book, according to the scholars I follow, they are all rooted in the fathers of the church. This part of the book covers a prophecy that covers from the first coming of Christ to the second coming. So it from different angles, the church is from one angle of history, from maybe from the church perspective. Then you have from the perspective of heresies, the seven trumpets, how everything progressed towards the second coming. And in the seven seals, you have it more from an angle of worldly events. So the seven seals are this, no? It's a prophecy. Each seal are events or epochs of our history that lead up to the second coming. So you have the first seal, that is the white rider. Here, the Catholic interpretation is pretty much very different from the Protestant one, because they say, most of them, they say is the Antichrist, though the Catholic interpretation says that the white horse is the start of the spreading of the gospel through kings with the Middle Ages, with the Catholic kings. And then you have the second horse, that is war, is the red horse. This is a common interpretation both in Catholics and Protestants. The red horse represents war. This is the second seal, but it's not just war in general. It represents war leading to the end of times. So it's war as an institution of mankind, and that's what we have today. Wars everywhere. Since World War I, we had, and then World War II, and since then we've been living in a world of conflict, and with the aggravation that the conflicts now are nuclear. So it's something that never happened before in history. The possibility of these wars to really end the world, destroy it forever. So that is the red horse. Then comes the black horse, the third seal, which is famine. This is also a common interpretation in all Christians. But it's famine after war. Is the natural conclusion of war and big global crisis. It's famine, as we've seen after the two great wars of last century. And as we see in every country with war, after the war, that country plunges into famine. So it's also famine, and we have the addition in our time that famine is also being contributed by extreme capitalism. So you have people that are every time richer and richer, very few ones. I'm not going to give names here, but I think we all know them. And then you have ever more misery in most parts of the world. That's the third seal. And everything, the seven seals actually are a prophecy that after the first horseman are referring to the end times. Different to the seven churches that starts way before in the early Christians, the prophecy, and goes church by church till the last church, which will be the church of the end times. And the seven seals, the seven trumpets also goes heresy by heresy from the first heresies, the first great heresy. There were other ones before, but the first great one was Arianism, and goes from that, from heresy to heresy to the last heresy, which will be the heresy of the Antichrist. That's what we show and explain in the movie. And well, the seven seals, they concentrate more in the events much closer to the end times. So they are particularly interesting to us because they speak more of our time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the fourth seal, which is also pretty common in Christian interpretation, both Catholic and non-Catholic, that it represents the time of the Antichrist. And there you have some descriptions of how that time will be. Then during the the explanation on the second part of this movie, the second movie we are planning to do. You have more details, but in this part, you have the details like that. What kind of persecution will the Antichrist bring? He will bring persecution through arms, so that's why he brings a sword, the fourth horseman. He will bring persecution through, it says, beasts of the earth. Uh, Early Christians thought that meant the beast in the circus, like the lions eating Christians. Um, that today we may think could be bestialized man. We becoming every day more like beasts as humans, um, and also by pestilence, it says. And in the movie, we relate it with the pandemic
Mhm.
and how we do not say that the fourth seals foretells this pandemic in particular, but we use this pandemic as an example of how a pandemic can be used by power to control people and to persecute them. So you see, we explain how during the pandemic, for example, masses, and not only masses but all Christian services were forbade, and how access to sacraments was also limited, very limited, and you had to go like into the catacombs if you wanted to attend a mass or maybe confess, and that's how we show and interpret the seven seals.
That's interesting too, because you think about just from that perspective of the pandemic, and I wrote this article a while ago, is how to get people from the couch back to church, from the couch to the pews, because, like you said, they sort of we understand what the Eucharist is, right? It's the body and the blood, right, of Jesus Christ. But during the pandemic, when we didn't have access to it, it sort of changed a lot of people's perspective on what the Eucharist really means, and a lot of those people never went back to church. And we see that it has had a real serious impact on mass attendance, on people believing in the true presence of Christ in the Eucharist, and it has not really rebounded, so to speak. There's still a void there. So let's do you think we're living in the fourth seal? I just want to clarify that. Which seal do you feel
Um,
like we're living in currently?
we made a T-shirt for merchandise just to uh, rice funds for our movie, and the T-shirt was the four horsemen like running in a line, and you are here. We had an arrow right between the white horseman, which is the first seal, and the second horseman, because I believe we are. I think that is very much clear in the movie. The white horseman is the time of Christendom. That time has passed, and the time of victory for Christians, where Christians were victors again and again, and everything went well for them, except for their own fights between them. But in a worldly sense, Christendom was at its peaks, at its peak. After that comes our time, the modern times, and that's where we are. It's a time where we have the red horse, and we are starting to have the black horse, which is the third seal, that is famine.
Mm.
But I believe we are not yet plunged right into that time of the famine, but I think we are very close. The book of Revelation speaks about one third of the world in famine, and I did my research, and
Mhm.
according to the UN, we are almost there. We are at the brink of having one third of the world in famine, and that is a pretty clear sign of where we stand. But I don't believe the fourth horseman has yet arrived. But
Wow.
I believe he's very close, being the Antichrist.
So do you think in our lifetime, we're probably around the same age, that we will reach the end of days? I mean, because time is so relevant, right? I mean, we know that God doesn't live in the same time and doesn't experience time the way we do. So when especially my Christian friend said we're close to it, we're close to it. But is that in our lifetime? Do you think it's going to happen in the next 30 years, 50 years? What do you think?
I hope it does, and I hope it doesn't. Uh, Let me explain. I would sure love to see Christ come back. That would be, I think, amazing. But Revelation is a prophecy, but it's a conditional prophecy, um, in the sense of time. when it will be accomplished, when that second coming will be. It depends on humankind. If humankind converts, the time will be postponed. If humankind does not convert and uh, grows cooler and cooler in charity, and it grows in iniquity, the time will
Mm.
come near us, more near us. Um, Seeing things how they are, I don't see a conversion of the world being possible right now. I don't see it leading that way. I have enough years to live.
So one other thing now, you mentioned the Antichrist. How do I know? I mean, because people, obviously we, especially on social media, they're ready to call anyone a celebrity, someone in power, the Antichrist, and we throw that word around. But how will we know when the Antichrist comes if he's not here already?
That's a great question. And that's one of the reasons I put this movie out there. Reading Revelation and studying the prophecies is one great way to identify who will be the Christ. I know for what I studied that the Antichrist will be loved by everyone, most everyone, that even Christians and Catholics, good faith people, will be inclined to adore him, and they would if it wouldn't be for a special grace of God. And that I know it because Jesus himself said it. Jesus says in the Bible, it says that even the elected could be fooled if it wasn't by a special grace of God, by this Antichrist. So the best way to be prepared to identify the real Antichrist when comes into sin is to be in grace. So if you're a Catholic, be frequent with your sacraments, confession, Eucharist, especially. And also you have some signs of things that should happen before. So before the Antichrist is here, the gospel needs to be um, announced to the whole world. Well, a friend of mine is a priest. His mission is to establish missions where the gospel was never announced. These are very small tribes lost in the middle of Africa or kind of that, because in most places, if they have internet, and actually already most places have already been preached the gospel. This prophecy doesn't mean that the gospel needs to be accepted, but preach it. So you got Asian countries that have never been Christian, but they've been preached. So there you have one. But going back to your question, how can we identify this person if it's the Antichrist or not? I think the only way will be just knowing the prophecies and to identify the time. Knowing, for example, I know that the Antichrist will be a worldly leader. He will be the leader of the world. Everyone will love him. He will seem good to everyone, to all religions, but he will try to falsify Christianism.
Mm.
And that's one key element you have to be aware. So it's very important to be to cling to tradition, to the teachings of the early church, to the teachings of the church magistry. And for that, you need to form yourself and you need to study. This movie gives you some elements, but it's just an introduction to the topic. It's so vast and profound. It just scratches the surface. And also to identify who might be the Antichrist, I think there's some traditions. None of this is dogma, but there are some traditions that say that he will be the age of Christ. So he will be around 30, 33 years old. He will be beautiful. So I've heard some people say, "Oh, it's Trump, it's Elon Musk." I would scratch those out.
I was thinking it was one of the Kardashians when you said,
Uh,
but then you said he. But no, listen, not to even make a joke about it, but two things. One is the more you learn, the more you research, the more you realize you don't know. I mean, The
Right.
more I've been studying religion 15 years and the more I read about it, the more I realize I don't know. And then you start learning about other religions and how, to find sort of a common ground. But like I said, my Protestant friends, I'll be with them next week, and this is the topic of conversation. But I hope after people see this film, especially the Catholics, that it's something we talk about because this isn't something that, like I said, my mother teaches CCD. I didn't learn this in college. This wasn't something that we spoke about. Maybe we spoke a little bit about it, the prophecy, but not in as depth as we should. And I have no idea what seal we might be living in because it's not something that we talk about. And if we do talk about it, it's not comfortable. So tell me, Simone, what do you hope people walk away with after seeing this film, and where can people see this film and find out about you?
First of all, I hope they lose fear to the Book of Revelation, especially among Catholics. I think it's like a taboo uh, revelation. I hope they see it for what it is, a prophecy of the second coming and final triumph of Jesus Christ over evil and triumph of the church. And that they live with a sense of hope after watching the movie in the midst of all this crisis we are living in. That's my main goal. And the movie is releasing in February 15th to 17th. It's a 3-day event. And I eager you to go and get your tickets soon because seats are limited and we are getting less and less theaters available every day. But it will be a nationwide release. It's over 800 theaters, I believe. And well, that's just if they come out of the movie with a bit of hope in their hearts, I feel fulfilled.
Mhm. I think they will. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. And Alexis, our mutual friend, I'm taking notes and I'm like emailing her. I'm like, this is an amazing documentary because, like I said, it's not something that we talk about, and it's something we should. So, Simone, I thank you for your time, and I advise people to go see his film, which will be out, like you said, there'll be Valentine's Day weekend, but February 15th to the 17th, right? In about 800 theaters throughout the country.
That's correct.
Simon, thank you for your time. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Walk in Faith. Always remember you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through words and actions. God bless you.